Leroy Bartel. So he's putting out some YouTube instructions. But anyway, one was on the Holy Ghost. And anyway, as we all know, he's alive and real. And praise the Lord.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Thank you, Sir Ed.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? This is the second to the last day. Woohoo! Tomorrow is our last day. Tomorrow, your other DMIN students will be joining us tomorrow, starting 10 in the morning. So the first half will be just us, and then 10 onwards, they will join us because I made a DMIN dissertation template. It's the first one ever made for the Doctor of Ministry program. And so you guys were supposed to be the only one who get it, but just kidding. But the other students, even if they're on, doing their projects, it's ongoing, they want to join the class and see the DMIN dissertation template. It helps you with headings, because the Arabian has 5 levels of heading, chapter heading, the spaces and stuff, and sometimes can get confusing. So I just made a template. I'm thinking of making one for the MA too. I'm still thinking about it.
I think pay you some money.
No, it is for the love of God. But I mean, I think that the MA should have a hard time. Just I think they should start manually, For the DMIN, you all are busy, you have ministries. So I think you should get a template, and that's okay. Now, before we continue, I want to ask, thank you for the research design. I returned your task 1, and all of you did well. Congrats. So how about for research design? Do you have any questions? Okay, you're okay with your research design. And just to clarify, although I only discuss quantitative and qualitative in this class, there are actually established mixed methods. Okay, mixed methodologies and sequential methods. There were 6 of them Cresswell wrote in his book. I didn't discuss them because personally I don't know them. These are kind of recent methods and I don't know how to use them. So I can't give what I don't have, so I didn't discuss them. But your methods, the one you put in your paper, is your method. Okay, so I already shared that there's a difference between established methodologies and your methodology. Okay, if you're not using an established methodology, is a set of it's a process, it's already established, it's there. You just need to follow it. Okay, but your methodology is you designed your own. Okay, and so it's still mixed methods, a mixture, a combination of quantitative, qualitative, but it's your own design. And so in your paper, make sure that you list down the steps, the investigative steps. So it's clear that it's not an established methodology, but your own mixed methodology. Okay, so that's all. That's the only comment because I did a sweep through all the research. I haven't checked it yet because I'm still checking the I have another class actually, research methods 1, and it's their midterm exam. So I'm still checking their papers, but I'll try to check your paper this afternoon. Now, another thing I want to clarify, because I forgot yesterday, Pastor Jo Marie, thank you for that question. He asked me about sampling, like how many is the right number for sampling, right? Okay. And I answered only for quantitative data. So I forgot to answer for qualitative. What if your study is qualitative? What's the right sample size? Okay. The funny thing is there's no there's no like one answer to that question. What scholars do is they rely on the principle of saturation. Okay. So let me just enlarge this. There. So qualitative analysis typically require a smaller sample size than quantitative analysis. Qualitative sample sizes should be large enough to obtain enough data to sufficiently describe the phenomenon of interest and address the research questions. The goal of qualitative researchers should be the attainment of saturation. Okay, so that's it. Your goal is to attain saturation. So saturation occurs when adding more participants to the study does not result in additional perspectives or information. Okay, meaning in my research, I only had 5 respondents. But these 5 were enough. I could already get the information that I need with just these 5 people. If I add another one, it's just repetitive information. Okay? They're not going to add anything new to the study. So the 5 was okay. And my supervisor approved it also. Okay? So your goal is to reach a point of saturation where with this sample, you can get what you need. You can get the information that you need. Now, different scholars have different advice. Glasser and Strauss recommend the concept of saturation for achieving an appropriate sample size in qualitative studies. Other guidelines have also been recommended. For ethnography, Moore suggests 30 to 50 participants. For grounded theory, 30 to 50. Cresswell suggests only 20 to 30. For phenomenological studies, Cresswell recommends 5 to 25. That's why in my study it was 5, because my study was almost phenomenological. What happened? Hello? Okay, good. Is my sound okay now?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So going back, so in phenomenological study, 5 to 25. So in my study, it was almost phenomenological. So I chose only 5, and that's okay. Moore suggests at least six. Okay, so these are recommendations. So if you put them together, it looks like a safe number is 30. Okay, if you're planning to do a study of a large group and it's a qualitative sample study, a safe number is 30. Okay, it's 10 to 30. If you're doing an interview or a case study of a specific group, then 5 to 10 if it's phenomenological. Okay, 5 to 10 is okay. But again, the concept to remember is the principle of saturation. If you think that the sample you have is enough to gather the data you need, then that's okay. Okay, so that's for qualitative study. Okay, do you have any questions about this part? Okay, let's move on now. We have yes, go ahead. Oh, was there a question?
It's okay. I can come back to that because I think qualitative. That's the research design that I needed for my. But it's okay. We go ahead.
Now, actually, for your study, Pastor, I think you don't need a sample. You really need to dig out the truth.
Yeah.
You're like a detective. So
okay.
you will not rely on sampling. You have to interview everyone. Because it's a historical study, right?
Yeah.
So the basis for choosing, so yours is going to be purposive.
Yeah.
You're going to really choose the people who have a story to tell, so that you can have the big picture.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Just a sec. Today we're going to be discussing generating data. So there are 3 ways to generate data. Sorry, 2 ways. One is to generate from outside sources, and the other is yourself. Okay. But let's focus first on interviews. So conducting interviews. I know some of us here, we're gonna conduct interviews. I think maybe almost all of you. Now, 2 ways to do that. One is one-on-one interview, and the second is focus group interview. So you can interview a group, let's say 30 people. Okay, and for example, I will show you a sample. One of our students, our graduates, Dr. Prudential Cos, he did focus group interview. Yeah, and then I was very successful. He was able to gather data needed, and some of you might be able to use that. Instead of doing a one-on-one interview, do a focus group interview, like Pastor John Marie. I think you can do this, because Cresswell suggests if you, it is very useful to do a focus group interview if the person especially have the same mindsets, that they can contribute to the ideas. You can do a discussion. So it's actually very useful for studies like yours.
How many persons, no?
30.
I mean, in a focus group.
Yeah, 30.
Yeah, okay.
That would, because in the qualitative sample, the average is 30 people, right? So if you can find 30 pastors, you group them geographically because the district is huge. So if you
In
can
the
group them geographically, 30 here, 30 there, and then interview them about leadership succession.
so
I think it'll be very good.
in quantity, ma'am, is also 30.
The ideal number that most scholars suggest is 30.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now let's go on to interviewing. So processes and protocols. Why is my computer so slow today? Okay. So the interview process. First, decide on the research questions that will be answered by interviews. In formulating your interview question, remember that it must be based on your research question, your main research questions. Okay, these questions are open-ended. For interviews, it's open-ended. Survey is close-ended, although you can also use open-ended questions in surveys, but most often surveys are close-ended questions. Okay, so for interviews, one-on-one or focus group, it's open-ended, general, and focused on understanding your central phenomenon in the study. First, after you decide the research questions, then you identify interviewees who can best answer these questions based on one of the purposeful sampling procedures, which you can read in Creswell's book. Then determine what type of interview is practical and will net the most useful information to answer research questions. So the types are one-on-one interview, telephone interview. Hello, I would like to conduct an interview with you, by telephone. But it's not so popular now, landline phones. We use cell phones now. You can use email interview, messenger interview, and the focus group interview, the one I just talked to you about. Use adequate recording procedures when conducting one-on-one or focus group interviews. Actually, it's very good if you have, what do you call that, audio recording with their consent. Okay, it has to be, they have to agree to an audio recording, because honestly, I did this. You will not be able to follow everything just by writing. You'll not be able to record everything. You need to have an audio recording application or a software. So I used my phone or my iPad to record the interview. Then design and use an interview protocol or interview guide, a form about 4 or 5 pages in length with space to write in answers, with approximately 5 to 7 open-ended questions and ample space between the questions to write responses to the interviewee's comments. I'm going to show you an example of an interview protocol. Creswell showed one in his book, but I want to show you one which I made. Where is that? Interview protocol, this one. This is a bit long. The interview protocol are for your eyes. Okay, it's for you to look at. The questionnaire goes to the interviewee, to the respondent. The protocol is for you, to guide you. So this is an example of an interview protocol. It's 5 pages. The first part here are guidelines for you. Okay, so for example, I will follow these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. 1, the interview questions will be aligned with the research questions and based on the literature review. And so the questions posed to the participants will be intentional and necessary for the overall purpose of the study. 2, though interview questions are aligned with the overall purpose of the research, attention and sensitivity will be given to the context shaping participants' experiences, and so on, okay? All the way to number 7. And then also in my interview protocol, I told them that the interviews will be transcribed and archived at the Asia Pacific Research Center here, APRC. So they have to be aware that their interview transcript will be filed here. So if anyone wants to see their interview, it's there in the APRC. Okay. And then I also wrote here in number 6, it's in English, the interview's in English, but if the participant speaks in Tagalog, the Filipino language, I will be translating, okay, in the transcript. And again, the translation will be archived at APRC. and then attached to the appendix of the study. So the respondent is aware of this. Then the interview process will use this map. So this is the map. First, introduce yourself, introduce the project, build rapport, then evoke stories or emotions, interview with questionnaire, debrief, and wrap up, and then that's it. So this is the map. So this is the first part. The second part is this one. So now I used Chia Beng Hok's questionnaire as an example here. So but these are mine. These are like guidelines that as an interviewee you can follow. Then this one would be questionnaires. The second, the part one proper would be questionnaires. So first, instructions. You will give them instructions of what's going to happen. Second, you tell them about the recording, that you will be recording the interview. Third, they have to sign the consent form. Okay, I will show you the sample consent form later on. Okay, so the first part is more of instructions, general instruction, recording instruction, and then the consent form. The second part, oh sorry, this isn't Chia, but this should be changed. Let me remove that. This is actually mine. Okay, the second part are definition of terms. So in my study, I used some words that others may not understand. Example, I used revival, signs and wonders, and revival movement. So that when you give them the questionnaire, they have these definitions. I answered one questionnaire one time. There was a PhD student who came to APTS and she gave us these questionnaires to answer, but some words I just didn't understand, or I didn't know what she was trying to ask. So I ended up not answering the questionnaire. Okay, so if that's the case, if you think that there are some words in your study that the respondent may not understand, write down the definition, okay, in the questionnaire. Part 3 is the one-on-one interview questionnaire itself. First part is their personal profile. Now, assure them, if they don't want to be identified, assure them that this information will be kept confidential. Okay, or if they refuse to answer this, then it'll be hard on you because you need to do a demographic profiling or demographic assessment. But if they really refuse to answer this, then it's their prerogative. Okay. Second is their ministerial profile. Third is the interview proper. So the interview proper these are questions related to the research question, to the main research question. So the first part are personal profile, name, age, marital status. Second is ministerial profile. Are they pastors? What church are they serving in? These two parts are important for you because you need to present a demographic assessment of your interviewees or your respondents. Okay. And then the section 3 now would be the interview proper. These questions are related to the main research question. And then I thank them for being part of the interview. Part 4 is debriefing and wrap up. Thank you. It's just a script. Thank you so much. I really appreciate part of the establishing rapport. And then assure them that if they want to be they want to remain anonymous, that their information will be kept confidential, and so on. Now, part 5 is your own reflection. So part 5, interviewer's reflection. Just this example, describe the respondent's attitude towards the interview. Describe any unusual circumstance while you were doing the interview. Describe anything else that happened that you should write down, and any additional comments. Okay, so that's it. So this is an example of an interview protocol. Okay, now let me show you an example of a consent form. Where is my consent form? This one is an example of a consent form. By the way, all of these are in your Moodle under lesson 4, or yeah. So consent form. So here you will write down, I understand that my participation in this interview is voluntary, blah, blah, blah. I agree that the interview data will be kept for future research purposes, blah, blah, blah. And you can also write here, which I forgot to write, I think. Did I write it here? That the interview will be recorded. But after the interview is transcribed, I will destroy the recording, something like that. So just to assure them that, you know, they will be kept, their part of this will be kept confidential. If they feel uneasy about audio recording, you can assure them, after I transcribe it in paper, I will destroy the recording, something like that. So you can do that for them. And then they have to check, or put their initials, sign here. You should also sign. So I forgot to put the name of interviewer here, date and signature. So there should be two signatures, the participant and the interviewer. Okay. And then this is also filed at the APRC. Okay. Just in case that they will, you know, get back at you. Oh, you interviewed me without consent. Actually, I did. There's a consent form. Okay. Right. So that is for some of the documents you need before you interview. Now let's go back to the interview process. Now, how are questions developed? First, you have to have top level questions. Basically, number one, what do you really want to learn? Okay, you actually use interviews and surveys. The best time to use interviews and surveys is when there are no other records or literature available to help you understand your research problem. Okay, so if there's nothing written, for example, you're writing history, like Pastor Tupu, there are no books available. And so you use interview. It's a primary source. You're trying to get the data because it's not available in the library, not available anywhere. Okay, so make sure that you ask questions that you really need, so you can answer, so you can, you know, make data available for others. Okay, use this chance to get the data that you need. So what do you want to learn? And then whom should I talk to in order to learn more? So for example, in my interview, I asked them, what do I really want to learn? Okay, what do you really think about this and that and that? What is your definition of this? Afterwards, at the end of it, I asked them, do you know anyone else who can give me more information about this? Something like that. So that would be the last part, because they might know people. So they were actually helping me connect with others. Unfortunately, then I asked them, do you know when this movement started? And they all said no, none of them. So then at least you have an idea. Okay, you can get information firsthand from these people, and they can connect you to the next people that you could talk to. Okay, so these are how questions are developed. Again, take the chance to ask questions that you really need, because there are no available books or resources for you about this topic. So after you develop initial questions, refine the interview questions and the procedures further through pilot testing. So for example, Dr. Prudencio Cos, in his dissertation, his first interview was testing, a trial interview. Okay, and he said that in his methodology, the first one was a trial interview. Still, he was able to get a lot of information. And then the second one were the more proper interviews. Okay, the pilot cases are selected on the basis of convenience, access, and for trial interview, you can do convenience sampling. Okay, although convenience sampling is not recommendable, it's not really good, but it's just a test anyway. You just want to test if the questions are okay. Okay. Then determine the place for conducting the interview. Obtain consent from the interviewee. Okay, don't forget to obtain consent, because some of your works may be published. Okay, and so they might get back at you, and they might, you know, sue you. So you have to protect yourself. Okay, during the interview, use good interview procedures. Stay to the questions, complete the interview within the time specified if possible, be respectful and courteous, and offer a few questions and advice. Yeah, at this time, you're an interviewer, you are not a pastor. Okay, because you don't want to waste time. You need to get to utilize the time effectively and efficiently. So avoid giving advice, focus on your research questions. Remember, a good interviewer is a good listener rather than a frequent speaker during an interview. Okay, so in your Moodle, I uploaded an interview transcript. You have to transcribe all the interviews. If it is in another language and not English, you have to also prepare a translation. Okay, and all of this should be in the appendix. Then you have to have a consent form, an interview protocol. An example of a focus group interview by Dr. Prudential Cos is also available. Let me show it to you. This one. So he's very kind. He's gonna be publishing his dissertation. It's gonna be turned into a book. So you can read the entire material. But he allowed us to read chapter 3, a description of his research methodology. So if you're interested to do a focus group interview, you can learn from him. Okay. So how he did this, who he chose, and he explained why he chose this area. And he even had, in the appendix of his dissertation, he had attendance sheet. So who joined the focus interview and so on. Okay. So the research instruments he used. So you can use this. You can not use this, but read it as a guide if you plan to do focus group interviews. Okay. All right, so that's it for interviews, I think. Any questions about interviews? Yeah, then we'll go to analyzing data. Any questions about interviews? Okay, so now let's go to analyzing interview data. Okay, how do you, now that you got the interview, how do you analyze the interviews? Well, one, you can just use the usual methods of describing, just describing and presenting what they said. But if you are trying to come up with let's say, a theoretical definition of something, you can do what we call content analysis. Okay, so content analysis is an analysis method usually done for interviews, for open-ended interviews. So I'm going to show you an example of how to do content analysis using codes. And I think Sir Ed is going to do this for his study. Am I right, Sir Ed? Now, looking at the sheet here, so this is from my thesis. So I did a content analysis using codes. And this is the simplest way of doing it. There are other ways to do it, but this is the simplest way. So I interviewed 4 people. And the question for all 4 of them is the same. What is the definition of signs and wonders? So all these 4 interviewees were Filipino revivalists. They are under the neo-charismatic movement. They are connected to North American revivalists. So I wanted to know, as a Filipino revivalist, in your perspective, in your context, what is signs and wonders? Okay, so now I presented the response. Now I'm analyzing the interview data. So what you do in a table, first you write down their responses. So these are the participants 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now in the second column are their responses. So it's a summarized version of their response, but actually this is verbatim. I quoted them word for word, okay, just to be sure, or I paraphrased. And I even cited where I got their answers from. Now, after I write down their response, you will go to the initial coding. Okay? Yes, someone raised a hand.
Yes, well, I'm looking at your Moodle handouts. Which one is it? I can't seem to find this form you're displaying. Which
The
one is
content analysis form.
content analysis form?
It would be under generating, interpreting, and validating data. Is it there?
I
Oh, it's
have,
not there. Okay, I'll upload it. Yeah, it's not there.
okay, where would it be under?
It should be under generating, interpreting, and validating data.
Okay, yeah, I'm
Okay.
looking at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 3 samples. But so that you're going to
Yeah.
upload, and that'll be called
Content analysis, a sample of content
Okay.
analysis through codes.
Thanks, because I'm interested in that because I want to simulate that.
Yeah, you're gonna do this in your study, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, but this one is the simplest form.
Okay.
Because I only had 4 respondents, so it's easy. If you have 60 respondents or 30, I'll teach you another way of doing this, okay? So for the first one, this one, there are 4 only. The first, after you transcribe the response, the third row column here is initial coding. Initial coding is just first impression phrases. Okay, based on their answer, what were the first things that impressed you? First, just the words, the phrases that impressed you. Okay, so here I typed in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 phrases that were really, it just thing in my mind while they were answering. Okay, so the initial coding is first impression phrases. The second coding is focus coding. Now that you have your first impression phrases, categorize these phrases based on conceptual similarity. So after I did the initial coding, now I said, basically what he's trying to say is this, okay, based on conceptual similarity. So I did this for each respondent. So respondent 1, initial coding, focus coding. Respondent 2, response, initial coding, focus coding. Respondent 3, respondent 4. Now, in answering, so my main question is this: what is the definition of signs and wonders for them? My answer to that question will come from focus coding, the column focus coding. Now, try to synthesize their answer based on conceptual similarities. And so you will be able to come up with their definition of signs and wonders from the perspective of Filipino Toronto Blessing Revivalists. Okay, so that's how you do an analysis through codes. Now, again, what if there are 30? So these are 4, so easy, no? But what if there are 30 of them? What you're gonna do is the same, initial coding and focus coding. But since there are so many of them, you will notice that some of them have similarities in their answers. And so if you, for example, out of 35 have conceptually similar answers, you will code that as number 1, and then define their answers based on the conceptual similarity. Okay. And then another 3 have this almost the same, conceptually the same answer, then they will code them as 2, and so on. At the end of it, you have code 1, code 2, code 3, code 4, code 5. Code 1, this is the answer. Code 2, this is the answer. Code 3, this is the answer. And then you make a graph. Out of the 5 codes here, the highest number, the answer that with the highest number would be, let's say, code 4. Okay, so most of them, a majority of them say that this is the definition, code number 4. All right, am I making myself clear? Okay, so really it's just this one. Do a initial coding, first impression phrases, and then focus coding. Now, this can be subjective though. That's why a lot of researchers, they suggest that you should not be the one to code. If you can pay for someone to do the analysis, or if you can use a software, because it lessens the bias. But I only have 4 people. I'm not gonna pay others to do that when I can do it myself. But if you have like 100, a lot of people to analyze, a lot of text to analyze, then you can outsource. Okay, you can hire a professional to do the text analysis. Other websites like SurveyMonkey, they have text analysis software. You have to pay for it, of course. It's very expensive, but they will help you analyze and lessen the bias. Okay, right. So that's for content analysis using codes. Okay, any questions about this? Okay, this is useful if you're trying to find themes and definitions from multiple respondents. Okay, that's it. If you have no more questions about interviews, I'm gonna upload that later on during the break. Let's move on to survey. Okay, I think almost all of you here will do surveys. Okay, so let's talk about how to write survey questions. So the first thing to do is you have to plan your survey, and then you set a goal. What do you want to know and why? And make sure you keep that goal in mind. The book that I read said that if you could, you know, print it out and post it on the wall so you can always see, this is my goal, this is my goal. Okay, now in making the questions, first you have to ask yourself top level questions. So the first level question is, what are the questions I want to answer? What do I want to learn? Okay, that's your first level question. The second level question is, who is my target population? That is, who should take my survey? What demographic groups do I want to look for within my pool of survey respondents? Okay, so this is how you formulate questions now. This is your top level questions, and these are your possible pertinent research questions. So first, what do I want to learn? Then you write down the research questions that you want to learn. Second, who is my target population? Okay, and then you write down your demographic, the one that you want to interview or to survey. We're now in survey. After you decide on this, you narrow your focus. Extract topics from your research questions and break them into subtopics. Use your subtopics to write your survey questions. Remember, these questions aren't set in stone. So creating a list of these questions just helps you stay organized and focused so you can gather the evidence you need to reach your goal. Okay, let's look at an example survey. For example, okay, I just created this for this class. For example, I'm a DMIN student, and I'm trying to find out the top 5 values, top 5 values important for young marketplace Christians in the Philippines. Okay, so what are the top 5 values important for young marketplace Christians in the Philippines? So this is my proposed research topic. I'm planning to study on the values important for marketplace Christians in the Philippines because I want to know what top 5 values are important for young adults to embody their Christian testimony in the Filipino marketplace. In order that I can help my readers identify values that should be inculcated into future young professionals through a church discipleship program. So my topic is the values important for marketplace Christians in the Philippines. My research question is, what top 5 values are important for young adults to embody their Christian testimony in the Filipino marketplace? The significance of the research, it can help readers identify values that should be inculcated into future young professionals through church discipleship. So now let's start with the formulating a goal. So what? I want to know what adult professionals in the Filipino marketplace perceive as important values for them to embody their Christian testimony. Why? So meaning my target are not the young adults. My target for the survey are the adult professionals, those who have experience working in the industry. Why? Because their experience in the marketplace as Christian professionals will help them identify what values need to be inculcated into the future young professionals through church discipleship. So the goal of the study is to gather the top 5 values perceived by adult professionals in the Filipino marketplace that are important for effective Christian testimony and that should be inculcated in future young professionals through church discipleship. Now I will prepare my questions. My top level questions are this. Number 1, what do I want to learn? Right? Number 2, who is my target population? So number 1, what do I want to learn? My main research question for this is, among the values perceived as important for marketplace Christians, what are the top 5 most important values for young adults to embody their Christian testimony in the Filipino marketplace? So if you narrow the topic, I'm looking for godly values needed by young adult Christians in the Filipino marketplace. If you narrow it further into subtopics, I'm going to give a list of values. So I'm trying to understand values, which values, and the degree of importance, right? Now for for the second top level question, who is my target population? I'm targeting in this survey adult Christians aged 40 and above who have experienced working in the Filipino marketplace and are active members of Filipino AG churches. So if you narrow that topic, I'm looking for experienced perception of the importance of Christian values in the Filipino marketplace. And so my questions for this second level question, for this second level would be about age, gender, marital status, years as active church member, years working or experience in the marketplace. So the first one are my main research questions. The second is my demographic question, okay, which is important for a survey. So if I, translate that into survey questions, this would be what it looks like. For my top level question, I want to find out what are the top 5 values important for marketplace Christians. In the survey, it will look like this. Number 1, among the values perceived as important for marketplace Christians, what are the top 5 most important values for young adults to embody their Christian testimony in the Filipino marketplace? Second question, this is open-ended. Why did you choose these top 5 values as important for embodying Christian witness in the Filipino marketplace? And then third question, how important is it for Filipino marketplace Christians to learn and practice these top 5 values? So you have to rate the degree of importance from 1 to 5, where 5 is extremely important and 5 is extremely important and 1 is not important at all. And lastly, why did you choose that degree of importance? Now for the second level question, who are the survey participants and how experienced are they as marketplace Christians? In the survey, it will look like this. Which age group do you belong to? What is your gender? What is your marital status? How long have you been an active member in an AG church? How long have you worked in a company or industry? Okay, so let's look at this survey. So this is an example of a survey, but I used Google Forms. Okay, Google Forms is free. Although, personally, honestly, I like SurveyMonkey better. It's just that with SurveyMonkey, you can't do it for free. You have to pay. It's $5 per person. So for Google Forms, so I created this survey, identifying the top 5 values important for Filipino marketplace Christians. Okay, so I described the survey. The email address is required. So now this is the first survey question. Okay, and then they check. Remember to always include others, please specify, because they might have other ideas. Okay. Second, why did you choose these top 5 values? In SurveyMonkey, here you can just check Google Forms. In SurveyMonkey, they can actually rate it number 1, number 2. They can put a number 3, 4, which is really better than just checking. In SurveyMonkey, they can rate according to, they can, number according to priority or according to their perception of how important or which is the most important. But this one, just check 5, okay, and then explain why. The next question is, how important is it? So now we have 1 is not important at all, 5 is extremely important. Then they just check. Then why? They explain. After they finish the survey proper, they go next. Hey, sorry. Let me show it to you. So the next section is demographic questions. And for a survey, this is important because you will not be able to analyze your data without demographic questions, without demographic categories. Okay. So first, which age range do you belong to? The minimum for this survey is 40 years old. So the maximum 64 years and above. What is your gender? What is your marital status? How long have you been an active member of an Assembly of God church? And then how long have you been working in a company or industry? And then comments or feedback. Okay, so this, the first part is the survey proper, but the second part are demographic questions, which are important for you to analyze the survey result. Okay, before we continue, do you have any questions? Oh, can you see the survey?
I cannot see the survey.
I'm sorry. Let me share. I have to remove the other
Thank
screen.
you.
Okay, good. Thanks, Diana. Okay, there it is. So I use Google Forms, okay, and it's free. But as I said, Monkey Survey is better. It's just that you have to pay $5 per person if you want to send the survey. Okay, so the first part here is the survey proper. So among the values, please choose your top 5. So I listed here some values, and then they have to click, click, click. And then don't forget to put others, please specify. And then the second question is an open-ended question. Why? Why they chose those 5. The third question is the degree of importance. Why do they think it's important? So 1 is not important at all, 5 is extremely important, and they just click. And then why again? So after the first part, they go to section 2, which are the demographic questions. Okay? So the demographics again are important because you will use this to interpret the data. You will not be able to interpret data without demographic information. Okay? So this is an example. Google Forms, so easy to use. Okay? Okay, do you have any questions about surveys? Okay, moving back to the PowerPoint. Okay, sample survey. Okay, now after you finish, designing your survey, testing it, and now you're giving it away and people are answering it, it's time to gather it and collate and interpret. So ideally, you should have 100% returns. Your survey should be returned, but sometimes that doesn't happen. Okay, the ideal doesn't always happen. So you have to be able to follow up. If you need a letter from your supervisor or from the school so that whoever receives your survey will have a cover letter and they will recognize that, oh, this is really important, I have to return it. So you can do that. You can ask a letter from the school or from your supervisor so that your respondents will feel the importance of this study and they will really do their best to answer and return the survey. But there are a variety of ways to collect survey data. You can do a one-on-one you be the one to check. You can do it on the phone, via the internet like Google Form or SurveyMonkey, or via paper questionnaires that you send to them by mail or in person. So ideally, again, all survey results must be collected in time for collation or tabulation. Now, after you have gathered all the survey results, you have to make a data analysis plan. So a data analysis plan is a roadmap for how you're going to organize and analyze your survey data. And it should help you achieve 3 objectives that relate to the goal you set before you started your survey. So what are those 3 objectives? 1, you should answer your top research questions. Okay, remember, don't be distracted. Your goal is to answer your top research questions. Second, use more specific survey questions to understand those answers. And then segment survey respondents to compare the opinions of different demographic groups. So first step is go back to your goals. When you were planning your survey, you came up with general research questions that you wanted to answer by sending out a questionnaire. Remind yourself of your objectives when you start your data analysis plan. By going back to your goal and research questions, you should have your objectives fresh in your mind, and you'll be ready to plan out how you're going to organize your survey data. And then peek at the results for your top research question. Typically, a data analysis plan will start with the questions in your survey that ask respondents to respond directly to your primary research question. Okay, so start your survey with the primary research question and then organize your questions. So because you want to gain a more insightful understanding of what your data means, organize your thoughts by attributing your specific survey questions to each general research question. So when it comes to creating an effective final report, you'll know exactly which data you need to answer your bigger questions. If it helps, organize your questions in a table format. So earlier, I used the example of top 5 values important for marketplace Christians, right? So imagine now I have received my survey results. So how do I organize my questions? So this is the organization of the questions. I showed this to you earlier. Now, how do I interpret that? First, you segment your data. Now, that's why demographic is so important, because you have to segment the first the demographic profile of your survey. So age, let's say those 40 to 45 years old respondents, there were 20 of them. Okay, and so on. The ones who answered my survey within the age bracket of 52 to 57, there were 22 of them, and so on. So you begin by segmenting your survey according to demographic. Second, you segment your survey respondents according to their response. And there are many possible ways to do this. For example, here, I listed the top values, and based on the survey results, excellence had 22 people chose excellence, and then 16 chose efficiency, 18 integrity, 16 efficiency, 15 kindness, and then 12 perseverance. So we can see the top 5. So number 1 is excellence. Sorry, number 1 is excellence. Number 2 would be integrity. Number 3, efficiency. Number 4, perseverance. And number 5, kindness. So you can already see the answer to your top question. Next, you analyze, but that's still organizing the data. After you organize the data, then you analyze the data. How do you analyze data? You can do this by frequencies, meaning the raw counts, percentages, a number or ratio expressed as a fraction of 100, coding open-ended responses, and determining statistical significance. Okay, frequency, just write the raw count. So for those people aged 35 to, oh, it should be 40 to 45, 10 of them chose, 11 of them, no, 12 of them chose integrity, okay? And then 11 of them chose kindness, and 10 chose excellence, and so on. So my interpretation is this: for respondents who are aged, let's say, this is years of experience, not age, years of experience. So for respondents who have had 35 to 40 years of experience working in the Filipino marketplace, the top 5 values are integrity, kindness, excellence, perseverance, and authenticity. Okay, so that's one way of interpreting it. Another is to percentage. Okay, same thing, just calculate the percentage. So you can say, 20% of respondents who've worked in a company industry for 35 to 40 years consider integrity as the most important value for marketplace Christians. I'm not very good at math, and I also don't know how to use the calculator. So I actually use a software called calculator.net. What is the percentage of this for that? So I typed in the link here if you're interested to use that. Okay, so another way is percentage. Now, in my survey, there were open-ended questions. I asked, why did you choose these top 5 values? So in the same way that you code or you're analyzed through coding an interview, you should also analyze an open-ended question in your survey through codes. Okay, so for example, just example, out of let's say 60 respondents, these are the responses here. Okay, then their initial coding, your focus coding. Now, answers that have conceptual similarities to representing Jesus is number 1, code 1. Results, answers that, why did you choose these top 5 values? For them, it results to an appreciable perception of Christians. That's code 2. Again, why did you choose the top 5 values? For these people, it demonstrates the values that reflect God's kingdom. That's code 3, and so on, until you code all the answers with conceptual similarities. And I can say, let's say, for example, out of the 60 respondents, these three codes are the most common answers. Okay, so you can group their answers according to conceptual similarities. Most of them just say represent Jesus. I chose this because it makes people appreciate Christians. I chose this because they demonstrate the value. So 1, 2, 3, code 1, code 2, code 3. Then you analyze which of the coded responses are higher or lower. So let's say here, majority of the respondents explain that they chose their top 5 values because for them, it represented Jesus in their lives. Okay, so you can present that visually through a bar graph. Okay, so that's for open-ended questions. Beware, manual coding by a researcher is quite subjective. The big disadvantage here is that there is a high likelihood you will apply your own biases and simply not notice particular themes because subconsciously you don't think it's important to monitor. Okay. To lessen the bias and to interpret huge numbers of data, you can outsource to an agency. So this is what I said earlier, you can hire a professional to do it for you. Or you can do automate the coding, meaning you can use an algorithm. There are softwares for this. But if your survey only involves more or less 100, so at least less than 100 respondents, you can do manual coding. Just try to be as objective as possible. Okay. Okay. Before we continue, because the next one has to do with math. Do you have any questions about interpreting surveys through frequency, percentage, and open-ended codings?
So do you use all of them, or you use the one that's applicable to your work?
Yeah, of course, you use whatever works for you and whatever you can do, you prefer to do, because these are all possibilities. Like frequency and percentage, they're all good. Both are good. You can just choose one. But if you have open-ended questions, you should really code. You should do content analysis and code, especially if you have a lot of survey respondents. Okay, now moving to statistical significance. This is only important. You will only use this if you notice that there's a difference in the what do you call that? In the result. Let's say for men, this is higher. For women, it's lower. And so you wonder, is this significant? Is the fact that men's response are higher and the women are lower, is there a significance to this? So if you need to answer that question, then you do a calculation of statistical significance. Okay? So statistical significance helps you determine if the results of your analysis are likely to have happened by chance or if they truly are an accurate reflection of reality. So when you conduct a survey or other research, the analysis is based on the sample of a population, not the entire population. Okay, just the sample. The hope is that the sample reflects the attitudes of the entire group, but that may not always be the case. So analyzing statistical significance is a great way to determine the accuracy and believability of your research. So to calculate statistical significance, we calculate using a standard 95% confidence level. When we display an answer option as statistically significant, it means the difference between two groups has less than 5% probability of occurring by chance or sampling error alone, which is often displayed as P less than 0.05. So to calculate the statistical significance between groups, we'll use the following formulas. So this is the formula. I'm just going to look at it. Let's all look at it. Okay. Actually, I'm not very good at math, but if you just follow the formula, it's actually easy. If you just,
Don't worry, I failed math many times.
Me too. Algebra was like my worst thing. But if you follow, even in my weakness, if I just follow the formula, I can do it. I tried it. So for example, let's say I did a market research. I surveyed 1,000 men and 1,000 women. And I found out that 70% of the men say they are satisfied with your product compared to 65% of women. So question, is 70% significantly higher than 65%? So we can use the following survey data to complete the formulas. So P1 is percent of men who are satisfied with the product. So that's 0.7. P2, percent of women who are satisfied with the product. That's 0.65. N1, the number of men you surveyed, which is 1,000. N2, the number of women you surveyed, which is again 1,000. Okay, now let's try to calculate using the formula earlier. So this is the formula. A1, 700 equals P1, 0.7. This is the number of men who were satisfied times the number of men is 100. By 1,000, sorry, the respondent, total respondents is 1,000. Now for women, B1, 650, that's 0.65 times 1,000. So this means 700 men were satisfied, 650 women were satisfied. Now let's try to calculate their significance. So 700 plus 650 divided by 1,000 plus 1,000 equals 0.675. Now, continue your calculation. I just actually followed this formula here. So P 0.675 times 1 minus P 0.675 times 1 over 1,000 plus 1 over 1,000 equals 2.39. So no, sorry, 2.0209. Okay, now another formula, 2.39 equal 0.7 minus 0.65 divided by this one, 0.0209 equals 2.39. So the answer is 2.39. Now, is 2.39 greater than 1.96? It is, right? So 2.39 is greater than 1.96. It means that the difference between men and women is significant. Okay, if the result of the calculations here is greater than 1.96, then there is a significance between the difference between the men and the women. If it is less than 1.96, there's no statistical significance. It's okay. It's like it's not a big deal. But if there is it is greater than 1.96, then it is significant. Okay. Why it is significant? That's something you'll have to do further research on, maybe open-ended questions. Okay. All right. Do you understand how to calculate statistical significance? Actually, you just follow the formula, and I don't know why the formula is like that. with with statistics, you just follow the formula and you get okay.
We'll just get a statistician, ma'am.
Yeah, back in college, our school hired a statistician for us, and the statistician actually gave us advice. Okay, you use this formula, and that's it. And we just follow the formula, and we get the result. Okay, so for your DMIN, you can actually do that too. But calculating statistical significance, even I can do it, so you guys can do it. Okay, just follow the formula. Okay, here are the do's and don'ts. Do be wary of using the word significant with data findings unless you're actually discussing statistical significance. Find other language to express importance or relevance in other scenarios. Next, do review the statistical significance of every experiment or survey going forward if you haven't been doing so already. If you can, if you're doing surveys, if you can, if you think it's necessary to calculate the significance, do it. Okay. Don't make statistical significance the end all for assuming your results are accurate. Okay. Sometimes there are sampling errors or non-sampling errors. So it's good to do to calculate the statistical significance. It strengthens your research. But sometimes you have to be aware also that there could have been sampling errors while you were doing your research. Okay, so okay. Now, when you present your survey results, these are very easy. You just present it using charts. Make sure that your chart is precise and clear. Avoid confusing charts like this. You can also use different types of charts like bar graph, line graph, Venn diagram, etc. And then you can also use tables. Now for tables, please follow the Turabian format. This is now how you present a table. There should be a title, here, size 12, bold. And then if you got the information from another source, you have to put the source under. You do not footnote a table. Okay, before in the past, we made a mistake in footnoting tables, but we don't do that now. According to 9th edition of the Arabian, you put the source here. This is size 10 or 11 in a footnote format. Okay. But if the results of the survey are yours, you didn't copy it from someone else, you don't need to put a source. Okay. But if you got the information from another place, another book, another website, please write the source under the table. You can also present survey results through infographics like what Bill Gates did here. Okay. When should you use a table, a figure, or a text? So use a table to show many and precise numerical values and other specific data in a small space. Use a table to compare and contrast data values or characteristics among related items or items with several shared characteristics or variables. And use a table to show the presence or absence of specific characteristics. Now use a figure to show trends, patterns, and relationships across and between data sets when the general pattern is more important than the exact data values. For if in this situation, you can use graphs and data plots. Use a figure to summarize research results. So you can use graph, data plots, maps, or pie chart. And then use a figure to present a visual explanation of a sequence of events, procedures, geographic features, or physical characteristics. So you can use a schematic, diagrams, images, photographs, and maps. Now use text or words when you don't have extensive or complicated data to present. So if your data is not numerical, it's not really complicated, then just write it down. When putting data into a table, use text. When putting data into a table would mean creating a table with 2 or fewer columns. If the table has 2 or fewer columns, do not use a table, just type it down. Then when the data you are planning to present is peripheral to the study or irrelevant to the main findings of the study, you don't need to visualize or to illustrate it. Just write it in a short paragraph. Remember, graphs, diagrams, and tables are all great and attractive ways to present survey data that is easy to understand. The major reason for using visuals is clarity, as some data can be better understood when explained visually. And when it comes to presenting data, nothing is more effective than a diagram, table, or graph. Okay, break time. Oh! Before we go on a break, do you have any questions?
Yeah, what I wanted to ask was, for example, when you showed the 35 to 40 years experience, right? So there will be also in your survey 25 to 35
years of experience.
Years of experience. But the question I'm asking is, so if you have, let's say, 100 people that you surveyed, should you always make sure that you have the same proportion of the number of people between 25 to 35, just as you have 35 to 40?
Good.
Because that can affect, the outcome of your results.
That's a good question. So it has to do with sampling. So remember about representative sampling. If you choose 25 people for this age group, you should choose another 25 people for this age group, and so on. Okay. So very good, Josh. Yes?
With the interviews and all that, as you discussed, and do we have like a certain like numbers of people that we should, or is it depends on what you're.
Okay. So earlier about, again, sampling, qualitative sampling, because an interview is more qualitative. The principle is saturation. So you choose a number of people that will give you the data that you need.
Yeah.
They advise, based on the research I did about different authors, the average is 30. Okay. But for phenomenological studies, um, 5 is actually enough. 5 to 10 is enough. Now, if you think that 3 in your study is enough, like for example, I'm going to talk about Joshua's work. I think he's planning to do a case study of organizations. Am I right, Josh?
Yes.
Honestly, I think 3 is enough for him because an organization is so huge. You have to study so many aspects.
Everything.
Yeah. But if if these 3 can give you the information that you need, can have you reach that saturation point, adding another group is just, giving repetitive
Too much.
information.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the 3 is enough. Okay, so the principle is saturation. If you can choose a number that will help you give the data that you need, and that's okay. Okay, although they suggest 30 to 50 or 5 to 10 for phenomenological
Yeah.
studies.
I think the hardest part for me, like, I'm referring to my case. It's the process of interviews. I know that, and because the thing is, most of these interviews, because most of the people that I'm thinking of, like interviewing, uh, uh, they will be all in a Samoan language. So the hardest part is, it's just translating and all that.
Translating. You have to
Yeah.
translate everything.
So do you have any advice on that? Like,
Oh, you have to translate. In my study, I translated them all. So I had 2
okay.
transcription. One is the original one, and
Yeah.
I didn't change that. And then the other is the translated one. It's all at APRC now. So
Okay. As you mentioned, if we can, ask someone else to, to help with the analyzing, of the information and all that. Can we also do that? Like, if, or does it has to
but
be?
to be honest, in your
the-
case, I don't think you're going to be analyzing themes and conceptual similarities because your case is very direct. What's the history, right?
Okay.
So what you need is just to gather facts and data and tell the story. So it's like yours is like a narrative historical research.
Yeah.
You're just going to tell the story. And so the hardest part for you is to arrive at the truth and to prove that that is really the true event. And that's why validation, the triangulation comes in.
Yeah.
You don't just rely on the interview. You have to have, if there are pictures, or audio recordings or
Yeah.
archival records to support your claim that this is really what happened. Okay, so that would be for your case. Yeah, but yours is just, I think you're just going to do a storytelling, and the triangulation will only come in if there are conflicting stories.
Yeah. Okay.
Ma'am,
Yes.
um, just would like to qualify some of the statements that I have mentioned yesterday regarding my research subject. It was misconstrued
Use
that
the little
the
thing so you can
experiences
see.
and the qualifications, educational qualifications, that was not referring actually to the successors. It was referring to the profile of the respondents, which I also
Oh,
misexplained. Yeah,
demographics.
yeah, yeah. I was also
Okay, okay.
misexplained it. But
Mm-mm.
regarding that, because you have touched on this right now, is it important that the respondents have, because my survey will be done to the pastors and the church leaders, is it important that the respondents have like educational uh, standards or some degrees of educational attainment and pastoral experience for my service result to be more credible?
You're talking about your survey respondents, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Personally, I don't think the educational level matters. Personally, why? Because there are a lot of pastors without a master's degree or a
Yes, ma'am.
Bible college, but so much wisdom,
Yes, ma'am.
and this is a leadership concern. this is an administration, organizational
So just
issue.
delete that part.
Oh, no, well, no. If you think that it's important, just so you can gather information about your respondents. Let's say 50% of them have a master's level, while the other 30% are bachelor's level. It'll help in your demographic profiling. But in assessing the answer to your question, I don't think it. For me,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think it matters. Um,
Okay.
that's why I suggested a focus group interview for you. You can exchange, wisdom.
How about
um,
experience, ma'am?
yeah, like people who are what we call that, who have experience in leadership. So who have been in leadership and who have they have seen, they have experienced wise leadership, servant leadership, and those things. And from their experience, how should leadership succession happen, and so on. So
Okay.
that would
Thank
be
you.
something. But anyway, how about you, classmates? Do you have any suggestions for our pastor here? Okay, they have no suggestion for you. Yeah, but that is just my suggestion. A focus group sounds really nice for you, because you can divide the district into geographical areas, like
Yeah.
limit, and then get 30 from here, 30 here, 30 here, and then you sit together and you discuss. We have a problem. There are certain
Yeah.
like that, and then what do you think about
Yeah.
that? What is your idea? How
I
do you
just
think?
I just thought of it to include the educational attainment, ma'am, because I thought the paper will be written in a little bit formal form, and perhaps many will read it.
Oh, yeah,
So I
yeah.
thought a well thought answer would be not really coming from the educated people, but I think that would add more credibility to my paper. But if you think that's not important, I can delete that one. I can just
Well,
add a
I
change.
think it's in a way it helps in your demographic profiling, and you can see the differences between those who have had masters or higher educational level versus those who have more experience than education. So that's still an insight that you might need. So you don't need to remove that under your demographic profiling.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is that we will have to determine what demographics probably affects the survey,
Um,
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 for, for lack of maybe a better example. Like if you think that eating eggs affects a person's leadership, then that would probably have to come into your demographic. Is that what you're saying?
is it me or Jo Marie?
No, I
Ah.
was just asking. Yeah,
that
if
that
that, yeah.
perhaps that's why this study, I don't know the result of the study, but perhaps that those with higher education have a different viewpoint than those who are more experienced. So that's I don't know the result, so perhaps, so it's something worth exploring. Pastor
Uh,
Jom. Mm.
is it possible for Pastor Jomari to consider also the leaders, to interview the leaders in order to get the balance of ideas between pastors and church leaders?
Oh, church
Because it might be
leaders.
possible that pastors have this bias idea
Mm.
regarding succession.
Yeah,
Good.
I think it's important.
Very good point, Pastor Joel. Yeah, think about it, Pastor Jomari. Pastor Jomari, you have to identify your target respondents. Okay, so you can have two target respondents and two survey forms, one for pastors and the other for deacons or leaders of a church. And you can compare the responses of both.
You know, that brings me even to my topic, because with the discussions today, I realized that I need to narrow down a little bit more. Because when I say accountable leadership, are we talking about the people, or we are looking at bringing up a model for the organization? And I think I've been looking at the organization so I need to go back and clarify my my statement of problem.
Yeah,
Mm.
good, good. Well, you know, the process of writing is a process of revising. You will, you will be revising and revising and revising until the final. It's never
Because
over until it's over.
every time I come to this class, I get confused. I say I need to go back and change something.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's never over
We're
till
all,
it's
we're all
over.
in the same. We're all in the same boat.
That's true. Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, regarding my topic, actually, um, planting house churches, and my respondents are, in my survey, my respondents are the pastors under FMCC.
Mm,
But my problem is that I suspect that our organization, FMCC, is not good in planting churches.
mm,
So because of that, what I'm thinking, I don't know if you can help me in this area, is to give a survey about this thing, about planting house churches and its connection to making discipleship and training leaders in the church. And aside from that, I have to come up with another interview questionnaires for those who really go for planting house churches, in order for
mm,
me to get their idea also.
You mean
And
practitioners?
yeah, and it might lead me to give a recommendation, if I can say this thing,
Mm.
to encourage my group to engage in church planting, planting house churches.
Now, going back to the survey, so the interview part, that's good. So you interview
Mm-hmm.
practitioners, those who are
Mm-hmm.
actually doing plant house church planting.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. But but going back to the survey, who are going to be the respondents?
The pastors under FMCC.
And the survey is more of about what you
The
want to
survey is
learn.
more of how are they engaging in this
Okay.
church planting, and what are the results in their churches.
What are hindering
What
them?
what are happening in their churches right now? Are
Mm,
they doing the discipleship in their church? Are they encouraging their uh, members to participate in the ministry? How
of
often it?
church planting.
Yeah,
But this is specifically house church planting.
particularly house church planting.
Yeah. So that one is like you're establishing baseline data for your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Are they actually doing house church planting? If yes, what are their methods? If
Mm-hmm.
no, what is hindering them?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then if yes, how successful is it, especially in terms of discipling people? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
those are your top questions,
Yeah.
right? Now, once you gather that data, you'll be able to say, unfortunately or unfortunately, my
Mm.
organization is weak or strong here, like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you gather information from practitioners,
Yes.
plus your review of related lit, put that together and offer
Mm.
a model for you.
Yes. Yes. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know if I'm wrong or I'm right.
I think it's good. And of course, your supervisor will continue to work with you on that, but that's a good start.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's take a break and we'll continue. Hopefully we finish before 12. Okay, are
Hopefully.
you? I hope you are feeling well. Let's take a 5-minute break, drink coffee, eat, and so on. See you.
Arlene, maybe using my phone on the way, but it might be not a good idea because